Good morning. I'm Jack Fox. I'm a longtime retiree and a proud member, have been a member of the New Mexico National Guard for many, many years. And it's my honor this morning as the chairman of the Hall of Honor, New Mexico National Guard Hall of Honor Committee to be part of this ceremony this morning. And in just a few minutes, I will introduce Major General Kenneth Nava, the Adjutant General, to announce the inductees for this year's Hall of Honor program. Before we get started, I am going to announce the names of the members of the committee, and so that they have recognition, tell you a little bit about how this committee came together, what our mission is, and what the Hall of Honor does, before we get on with the more important part of the program, the announcement of the class of 2020. About a year, almost 2 years ago, the Adjutant General and some of the other leadership of the New Mexico National Guard, Army and Air, made the decision that it was long past time for the New Mexico National Guard to have some sort of formal program to recognize those individuals that have served in the past and the present, that have distinguished themselves, that set the standard for what we strive to be as airmen and soldiers. That we look back at our past and realize that we are here because we stood on the shoulders of those giants that helped found this state and this nation. And it's only because of their efforts that we are free and independent, and we have the proud New Mexico National Guard. And we realize as a state that our heritage and our history is phenomenal. And why haven't we done this before? Why haven't we gone back in our history to honor those New Mexicans that have gone above and beyond and represent what a citizen soldier truly is? So we sat down as a committee. We were charged to put together not only coming up with names, but what the process would be, what our rules would be, how we would look at timelines, all these different criteria that are so important when you do something that is such an important part of our history and the future as in this great program. And what the Hall of Honor will do, it'll not only allow us to go back and honor those that have served before and serving now, but hopefully be an educational instrument to the young airmen and soldiers of today and the airmen and soldiers of the future. So that's one of the primary missions why we do this. We look at our past, we look at our present to prepare for our future. And that's why we're here. This time, I'm going to put my glasses on because I have to read these names. And some of the members are here, some of them are on the line, but I will acknowledge our members. As I am the chairman, as I said previously, our vice chair is Colonel Carla Romero. Our treasurer is CW5 retired Sal Soto. Our secretary is Chief Brush, who does so much and does 90% of the work to keep this program going. Sergeant Major Cantrell, Chief Sandoval, Sergeant Major retired Kevin Myers, Ryan Sanders, Tabitha Baker. I'm trying to read the names. Our historian is Charles Martinez, Matt Demers. I'm reading these names, not really. Diangan Gallegos, CW5 Guy Gleason, Sergeant Major retired Fred Van Winkle, Samantha Tubbs, who is with the National Guard with the New Mexico Military Museum, and then Joe Vigil, who's Public Affairs. I think I've got everybody. And the Adjutant General, naturally. I'm going to not ignore the Adjutant General. I was going to get into that in just a minute, but thanks, Chief. You're always on the ball. I appreciate that. These individuals were tasked by the Adjutant General and the National Guard leadership to come up with a Hall of Honor. We looked at other halls. We looked at from the Baseball Hall of Fame to college halls of fame. We looked at bylaws of different states, National Guard organizations. Again, we looked at civilian and military programs that recognize those that have served so well. With all of that, we came together. We established our rules and our bylaws and our guidelines. Some simple things, for instance, you have to be out of the National Guard for 5 years. You can no longer be currently serving, but that allows us to go back to our recent past. And you look at what your contributions, what that individual's contributions have been, both in the civilian world and in the military. It's not only what we do while in uniform or did while in uniform. It's also what our fellow citizens do serving the state of New Mexico and our nation to make it better. So that we came together with, and we felt like we have a really good program to announce each year and induct individuals that we choose to honor. This year, we had many nominees. Last year, we had our first 3 inductees, and it was a wonderful event and a wonderful program. And we put out to the field, and National Guardsmen and people in the public, they can go on the museum website, they can go on the National Guard website, soldiers and units, airmen and units can go to their leadership and find out what the nomination process is. This year, we had many individuals nominated, and I want to emphasize to everyone that simply being nominated for inclusion in the Hall is a great honor in itself. And one of the things the committee had says that we will always retain those nominees. Even if they weren't selected one year, they will always be relooked at year after year after year. And in some cases, that will allow individuals that nominated someone to put together a more extensive package. Because our job as a committee is to look at those individuals we have, what has been provided to us, and then do our due diligence to go back and relook everything. And then we select those individuals. Then we ask the Adjutant General of New Mexico to review them and then to announce. This year, our committee has selected 3 individuals that have served our nation, our state, and the civilian world in an extraordinary manner. They represent the best of all of us. At this time, it is my honor to introduce the Adjutant General of New Mexico, the individual who actually decided that it was past time for us to create such a program. So without another word, I'm going to introduce our founding father, so to speak, the Adjutant General of New Mexico, Major General Kenneth Nava, to announce this year's induction.
Dear New Mexico National Guard family and friends, it gives me great pleasure to announce the New Mexico National Guard Hall of Honor recipients for calendar year 2020. This year's nominees span over 125 years of military service and demonstrated heroism on nearly every war and conflict in our nation's history. These inductees performed courageous acts on and off the battlefield and were heroes in their communities. These service members represent the cornerstone of our New Mexico heritage and are a large part of our state's military history. This year's New Mexico National Guard Hall of Honor Class of 2020 inductees are First Sergeant Manuel Armijo, CW5 Richard J. Quigley, and Colonel Robert L. Sands. Nominees for consideration are submitted to the New Mexico National Guard Hall of Honor Executive Committee. The criteria for the Executive Committee to analyze is based on the committee guidelines and includes several factors. The most important is service to their country and their community. Thank you to the New Mexico National Guard Hall of Honor Executive Committee for their dedication and perseverance while compiling the mountains of information during this year's nomination season. A special thank you to Mr. Charles Martinez, Executive Committee Member Historian, for all the research that you completed. We look forward to celebrating this historical event in honor of our inductees at our 2nd annual New Mexico National Guard Military Ball, scheduled for November 2020. Stay tuned and stay connected for more information about this official ceremony. Siempre adelante. Sincerely, Kenneth A. Nava, Major General, New Mexico National Guard.
On behalf of each member of the Hall of Honor Committee, it is a humbling experience to look at the records of those individuals that were nominated. And I emphasize again that those individuals in the Army and the Air National Guard that were submitted to us make each of us feel a little inferior. They are awesome men and women. They have led the way for each of us. Hopefully, as we induct these 3 new members in the class of 20, it will inspire others to look at those individuals' records and look at the ranks and look in the past and nominate other men and women that should be part of this great history that we call the New Mexico National Guard. Thank you very much.